Okay, good afternoon, team members. So this is the PM refresher session that we generally have with you in order to refresh the stage gate process and some of the relevant areas like cost estimation, risk calculations, project status reporting, etc. So I see there are only 6 or 7 people from the PM community that we have here, but that's good. Let's get started. So what we will do is a little bit in an agile way. Let's cover the regular topics quickly and then come back to any specific area or topic that the project managers present need to understand or need to get a deeper dive. Okay. So let's get started here. So as you know, the rules of engagement are pretty simple. That we will be taking care of your attendance. If you have joined by phone, please change it to your last name, first name, so it is easy for us to recognize who is that. Any questions you can share on the chat, or you can wait till the end. We can answer them together. And then the next topic is we want to cover the refresher course in the following sections, right? The first one, introduction, as I'm going through with that. Then a little bit of stage gate process overview. Then we will try to understand the status reporting, portfolio health, risk and issue management, cost estimations, and then we will leave the floor open for Q&A session and any deep dive or any topics. Sounds good? Okay, so let's get started quickly. And these slides you must have seen multiple times if you have been attending the refresher courses or the project manager training courses. So all this started last year with the CIO coming up with a vision that the project should be supported with the specialized skills and resources that possess those skills, right? So it's basically with that concept, an EPMO, Enterprise Project Management Office organization, has been stood up. And that basically is to provide the toolboxes that needed for the PM to plan and execute the projects, right? The basic idea that we executed projects in a systematic and structured way to deliver the projects to the best value to our customers, both on schedule, cost, and quality. In order to do that one, also to have the flexibility between defining multiple methodologies. We didn't want to restrict like we used to do 2 years back, that everything should be agile methodology. He opened up the gates and said it should be a conversation and understanding between the project teams and the business to decide what methodology they want to adopt. We'll talk more about it as we progress, okay? So the basic idea is with a vision to provide skilled resources to the projects, thereby the projects can be executed in a timely fashion under the budget and with quality. So moving on, there are 3 different towers that were created, the project manager, scheduler, and controller. As you can see that these 3 towers are interacting with each other in order to execute the project in a structured approach. The project manager, as most of you know, that basically takes care of and is accountable for the entire life of a project, starting from the inception all the way to the post-deployment. The scheduler basically is the skilled resource that will be taking care of the schedules of the projects. They will be coming out with templates. They will know the milestones. They will tie these projects to the other projects which have dependencies. And also they will be loading the schedules with resources and cost. Controller role is basically to take care of the financials of the project. All the financials, like what are the approved budgets, how much is spent, accruals, and any discrepancies, journal entries, then the purchase orders, payments, closure of the WBSS, etc. And they're also responsible for the forecast of the project, the immediate month and also the to-go forecast for the rest of the project's life. It could be for the current year. And if the project is spilling over to the next year, then they should be looking at the next year also. These resources are coming at a cost, right? As project managers, you should know how much you have to forecast or adjust in your cost estimates for these resources. We are not forcing that every project should have one dedicated resource, because the projects vary from its size, the amount of the complexity of the project, etc. So this inverted cone will help you to understand how much would be the dollars that you need to have on your project budgets. Okay, starting from your rough order magnitude estimates all the way to the different baselines that you are going to create during the life of a project. Okay, so starting from the biggest projects, over $15 million, where we need almost dedicated resources to take care of the projects, down to almost like now 2 hours a week for informal and miscellaneous and informal gated projects. So other than this, we are also coming out with another feature called a la carte. So if you cannot afford, or if you feel that your scheduler and controllers are not required to be participating on your project requirements, there is another feature that is coming up where you can order the resources support. Okay. Let's say somebody is having a problem with the WBSS creation, mapping it to the clients, or their actuals are not aligned, or for example, their forecasts need to be adjusted. So in order to have such services, you can order such services from the EPMO team. That is now being incorporated in ServiceNow. We will be rolling out shortly, but I'm giving you a heads up that in case you want a one-time support or support like once in a month or once in 2 months on your project, you don't have to have a resource allocated to your project. You make a request through ServiceNow. The request goes to the controller team or the scheduler team. They will pick up the request, they will interact with you, they assign a resource, and the resource works, and you're done. Okay, if the resource works 2 hours, then you will be giving the WBSs, they will charge for 2 hours, okay, when the invoice is raised for them. So moving on, this is the in general introduction to the EPMO vision, how the org unit was created, what are the 3 towers, etc. Moving on to the stage gate process. The EPMO introduction also came with a novel concept or a framework to execute the projects. We were not clearly defined at like a year and a half back what should be the clear framework that the project manager should use in order to execute a project. Okay, it used to be CMMI 5-6 years back. Then we moved on to 2-pizza team. Then we moved to product model, etc., etc. Most of you who have joined recently as project managers may not know the history. That's okay. But I just wanted to give you a foundation why a stage gate process is really important for a project manager to understand and adhere to. Okay. So as you know, stage gate process, we now fondly call it as SGP in the short form. But the name itself tells you that there are different stages and different gates. Okay, so this is the vision. This is the statement that why we wanted to have the SGP. This is the overall landscape picture of the SGP waterfall process, right? As I was telling you, there are 7 stages and 7 gates. So every stage contains some deliverables and some of the tasks that needed to be attended during that stage, right? This list is getting enhanced because a lot more teams are coming in, pitching their activities into those stages. For example, integration team, we call it as ICOE, Integration Center of Excellence. They're coming up with their activities. If a project is using APIs, extracting data from one source system and loading the data into a target system, then the integration team comes in. They have certain set of codes and standards that you have to follow, reviews to happen, documentation to be prepared, etc. So we are coming out with that sort of a picture, but as of now, that being fluid, I'm still using the old slide for understanding purposes, okay? But keep in mind that this is a transient stage. The slides are being enhanced, but the basic structure, the framework will remain the same. 7 stages, 7 gates. The gates are basically the transit point between one stage to the other stage, where you have to explain or give proof of completion of all the tasks of the outgoing stage. Okay. If you are moving, let us say, from project initiation to develop initial design, so the gate 3 comes into picture, and at that gate, you have to produce what is called a scorecard. This is like an easy pass, right? Any toll, when you come there, you have to present either your pass or you take a ticket and pay it when you exit that highway. So the same way, a scorecard has to be presented with completed details, how to present it, and I'll explain you in a few minutes. The basic concept is there are 7 stages and 7 gates for the waterfall and also for the agile, okay? So I just retained one slide, but waterfall, also agile. Only thing in an agile methodology, starting from the initial design and the direct manage becomes iterative. Got it? So this is where you will have plan, sprint release, and refine as 3 stages where you keep iterating through the life cycle till the last sprint is completed and last release happens. Then you move it into post-deployment. The activities are very specifically designed for those 3 agile methodology steps. You can get all the details in the stage gate framework agile. Okay. And the most important factor here is you have to understand your estimate. You see, starting at a create concept and at a business case level, you are hardly realistic, right? You have plus minus 50% rough order magnitude estimate. That means a project which can be like $100 could be $150 to $50 range. Okay. The most optimistic to the worst estimate to the best estimate, if you look at those estimates can vary from plus minus 50%. But as you progress through the life cycle, you will start maturing and understanding more and more about the project. Then you should tighten your estimates, right? What design you are coming up with, what is the solution, how many resources are required to work, what landscape you are going to use, is it a cloud or an on-service, on-prem servers, etc., etc. So as you can see, we progress into this. By the time you come to design level, you are more or less at a very accurate estimates, 10 to 15% range, right? So you will be taking baselines at each of these stages and referring back to your customer, because the customer has signed off on a 50% cost estimation, right? Plus minus 50%. But as you refine it, and if you find that your more accurate cost estimates are in, then you should share with them and say, hey, I'm going to now have this project at this particular cost estimates. Are you still interested to continue, or you have other thoughts? Take an example. I will be in the business case for $1 million project. Now the customer signs off. Discussions happen, design done. I got the final picture, what I'm going to deliver, duly approved by all the teams. Then I redo my cost estimates. It comes up to $1.5 million, let's say. So you go back to the customer and say, hey, no, I gave $1 million, but now with the additional details, what we have, we are at 1.5 mil. Are you interested to continue? If the yes, I need additional approval for $500,000 more. If not, then we have to make a call here. So at that time, business may come back with their ROIs, return on investments calculations. They may find this is good to go. That is well, you continue. They approve the additional funds and you continue with the project. If they find their ROI is not fruitful, or they're not rosy to them, they may say, no, this project is not giving me the value that I intend to get from this project. Let's stop it. So whatever is the amount that has been spent could be a sunken cost, but that is a known decision or a knowledge decision between the teams, then we may stop the project. Okay. So the idea is start very rough order magnitude estimates, slowly refine them, become accurate. And by the time you come to design level, you should have the most accurate or the tight cost estimate that can be presented back to your client. Got it? And moving on, though the projects are designed to go the framework, the agile or waterfall methodology, you need guidance in terms of templates, right? What structured templates I can use on my project? You have exhaustive list of templates on the PMO SharePoint site. You can access it either directly to the SharePoint or through the source, okay? Both ways, it leads to the same templating repository. And also there are certain templates on the source in the project templates. So there are three ways you can reach. One, ePMO source content page can give you the links directly going to the SharePoint site of ePMO team. Third, on the source, you have project templates, which most of the people are familiar with to use for their SOW templates, SSD templates, cost estimator templates, etc. Okay. All these links are provided in the deck. Most of you know it. In case you need any guidance or help there, let us know. We will provide you with that. So every project is not the same, and we don't intend to go with one size fits for all concept. So we want to come out and openly tell you that you have the flexibility of all the templates available, framework available, methodologies available that can be tailored to your project. But now, to understand what is the project and what is the project categorization, you have to understand that is the project is a big project or a formal gated, informal gated, etc., etc. So there are a couple of things that you need to understand. Basically, this is a categorization matrix. So if the project is a huge financially, like $1 million and above, naturally you will get into a lot of focus, right? In terms of budget and client funding it or IT funding it, capital owned them. So then naturally you will draw attention. So that is considered to be a formal gated project. Sometimes finance or the budget is not the only consideration. Even if a small project of $200,000 or $300,000, but if it is being executed or being asked to implement because of cybersecurity, that becomes formal gated. Or any regulatory requirements, it gives us formal gated. If it is a high risk project for our infrastructure or for our network, then automatically these parameters decide whether that will be a formal gated or an informal gated, right? So you have certain things, the size of the project, the risk of the project, the visibility of the project, and then the financial management of the project. So with all these factors, you and your group product manager should be able to categorize your project as a formal or informal gated project, okay? Satisfaction of any of these parameters automatically puts you into formal gated. And if it is not, let's say the project is a $250,000 project, not a NUG, not a security-driven project, it's not highly visible, it is a regular or a routine upgrade, you don't have to worry, then it will become informal gated project. The idea behind this formal and informal gate categorization is to identify what are all your applicabilities, right? What are all the deliverables that become applicable, the templates that become applicable to your project. So as you can see, formal gated project is 100% all the deliverables are applicable, no excuse here. As you move from left to right, slowly you see the circles open up. So only the solid circles, what you can see here, those are the ones that are required. There also you will have a lot more leeway in order to discuss with your customer and with your GPM director and see if that is really, really applicable or it is not really applicable. but you have to have justification, basically explaining why you feel that these deliverables are not required. Just for the sake of saying that I put myself into an informal gated project, I don't give anything, I'm good to go. No, because between the stages, when you move, you have to produce a scorecard, and at the scorecard, we are going to ask you all these questions. If you do not give us substantial explanation and approvals from your director or the GPMs, then you are in trouble. So the point is, have the categorization appropriately identified, and then identify the matrix for that one, the tailoring matrix. So the first one is a categorization. So you understood that, right? Then let's go back to the methodology that you want to adopt, either waterfall or iterative or agile methodology. So as you understood that waterfall is a straight approach, one big bang delivery. An agile approach is an iterative way that you keep on delivering smaller pieces to the production and refine your further user stories. Iterative approach is a combination of these two. Certain releases you will be waterfall approach, certain can be agile approach based on the project. But who will decide this project? The methodology is the team between the IT and the business. You together discuss, and IT team proposes that I feel that because of these requirements, I feel smaller chunks delivered to you will add value there. Then for business, feels, yeah, that's a good idea. Why don't we go with an agile approach? Sometimes it may not be possible, like setting up a server pool or setting up a network for an office setup. It has to go in one big bang approach, right? It cannot be like, now I'll put up one corner and the other corner will come next week and all, But the approach is being decided by the team. Okay, we're not mandating it. So first categorization, second one is your methodology. After these two are defined, then you come what is called the tailoring, right? Based on the categorization and the methodology that you are adopting, you now come and tailor the project and store this tailoring as a reference document.
So Ren, I have a question real quick.
Sure.
Ren? Can you go back to the other slide?
This one?
Can you go back to, yeah. You had, no, the other one. Well, you had mentioned that we either use waterfall, agile, and what was the third one?
Iterative. It's called hybrid.
Oh, hybrid. Okay, I got it. Okay.
Okay.
That's what I thought. Okay, thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye. So moving on, right? As a project manager, these are the 3 steps that you should do, and you should be good with your project, in my sincere opinion. First, identify what your project is by categorization. Second, identify what methodology you want to adopt. Third, what tailoring you are going to adopt for the project. And record these things, okay? Document this tailoring matrix, submit to your group product manager and to your director, get their approval and buy-in, then you are good. This becomes your baseline for your life of the project. Anywhere when you are discussing or reviewing or interacting with the other teams, this becomes your fundamental document. Got it? Then, as I said, at every gate, you have to present me with the EPMO team with a core scorecard. The scorecard is nothing but capturing the information about your deliverables, right? So it has the deliverables like this. You can see by stage, you are expected to do certain things. And if you say yes, 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 the score automatically becomes now higher and higher. We expect this percentage to be 100% for every stage. Okay. And if you have, and also to provide the proof that you have completed those things, either in terms of providing a link or some sort of justification in the document. This is an Excel file. And when you get this Excel file from your SharePoint site, that will be showing you exactly what to do. Try to be as exhaustive as possible, as informative as possible. That way, when the EPMO ops team is reviewing these scorecards, they have all the information at their at their hands. So the process of submitting it is prepare the download the SGP scorecard from the SharePoint site, prepare the scorecard, get it reviewed properly by your peers, your GPM, and then submit it to the SharePoint. Upload one copy there, submit it to the PSEG, APMO, SharePoint, the operations team. As soon as it comes in, we pick it up, we review those documents and see that you have all the information there is valid. And then we give you a okay to move on. That means with that as an approval, you can shift the stage from one stage to the other stage. If we need additional details, additional clarifications, we will interact with you. The idea is that you prepare the document as detailed, as informative as possible. So our review becomes very easy. So most probably we will finish the review like in 2 days' time maximum. You should not hit the pinch or the pain point here of somebody stopping the stages movement and you are continuing with. No. The intention is from the perspective of the stages and their deliverables, you are sticking to the scorecard and this SGP process. The bottom line here is very simple. This will be a compliant or a non-compliant situation. If you are compliant, excellent, all through you progress well, then even in an audit is done, we are good to go there. If any non-compliancy means let us catch them ahead of the game, in the very beginning itself, fix it. I won't say that everybody is going to be 100% in the very first attempt. But if you can identify that you missed a step, it is better to recover the step as quickly as possible, not allow that mistake to continue for another 2 stages or 3 stages, and then, oh gosh, you end up something big on that side. Okay. So that's the scorecard process. So with this, you have a fair picture of SGP, right? Stage gate process is a framework which defines a structured approach for the project implementation. Then you have the project categorization, which clearly tells you what your project should be: formal, informal, gated projects. And then the third is your methodology. And with these 2 informations at your hand, you'll be able to tailor your project and get the approvals to baseline what are the tasks that you are going to go through during the life cycle of a project. The last one is to get these things verified and validated by the EPM or ops team at the gates using this scorecard process. Okay. Any questions on this topic? Okay. So with that as an okay, I'm going to hand over the presentation to Aarti to take us through the other 2 sections, the project status reporting and health reviews. Aarti, yours.
Thank you, Naren. Thank you. Yeah. Good afternoon, everyone. This is Aarti. Before I start project status reporting module, I want to highlight few things about the project status reporting and project health review are the important artifacts from the project manager perspective. This is why, because each month PMs are entering the information into status report. That report is extracted and analyzed by IT PMO and shared with GSHAN and SLT member in monthly PHR meeting. That generally happens 3rd Thursday of every month. This is the way PM to show how they will deliver the project at that level. There is no surprises. You are maintaining and the report, so transparency and accountability with different indicators. Before I deep down, I would say it is a very simple process. Only one thing I want to emphasize on: when you enter the information into status report, try to be very transparent as much as possible. If you see if there is any risk issue existing in the system, it is better to keep status indicator yellow, red rather than keeping it green. There is no penalty to keep it indicator red or yellow. We totally understand that there are certain scenarios, those are beyond your control. So let me move on to your next slide. So these are nothing, these are some guidelines on this slide. Those PM has to follow to submit the status report each month. I am not going into the deep detail. I'm just reading through it. So PM should lead status update meetings with their project teams on a weekly basis to obtain the necessary information to accurately report on project status. All PM should work with their scheduler to make any necessary updates to the resource and cost loaded schedule. IT PMO send the reminder to submit the status report on first or third Friday of each month. This is showing nothing, just flow chart about how to create, edit the status report on the ServiceNow with all the comments and risks as we show all these key fields on the status report. So let me walk you through on that ServiceNow. So there you will get some kind of how to submit the report on that ServiceNow. So when you log in into the ServiceNow system, you can enter into your project. You will see the status reports along with your projects. Since I don't assign with any project, so I don't have that project with me. So I'm taking just common project status reports to show you how to submit and create the new project status report. Once you click on that, you will see there is new button on the right side. If you want to create a new report, you should click on that. Or if you want to update the old and existing report, you will land on this page. So you will see the pending. It will stay as pending because once you get the approval from the GPM, then you can turn it to the approval by GPM. All the grayed out auto populated field, you cannot change it because it's already there in the system according to your project. When you change that, please make sure when you update this report, date should be updated when you save the report. We also asked to some kind of key field for the bullet point for the last week achievements in the system because we are taking that on the DAC as well. I'm sorry, DAC as well. So when you go down, scroll down, we ask you to check all these key fields, project IT teams, details and everything is correct with according to your project when you are updating the status report. Project dates are correct, everything you need to check before you submit the report. Even the financials, everything looks fine, then you can submit. Schedule, these are the major things you need to see that on that report. If you see cost and schedule scope all, if you are seeing the issue that is going to impact your cost and schedule is 50% probability, then keep the indicator as yellow. So there the drop down menu, you can choose it as a yellow. For all these four indicators, you have to see. If you see the risk or issue that is going to impact cost, schedule or other like 75% probability, then keep the indicator as a red. So when you click on the overall status, you will see some other drop down. You need to fill out these information because we also capturing these notes, these points into our PHR. But now we stop taking the notes for the RAD projects because then the PMs and GPM, they have to speak on their RAD projects in the PHR meetings. So we stop taking the notes. So, but still we encourage you to put the notes, some kind of bullet points in that section. So that way we will know like what is going on, what is the problem, if you need any SLT help or anything, so that way you can do that. So once you
I got a question.
Yeah.
I got a question. Yeah. How did you get to the status report? When you entered the PRJ number in Snow, is that, somewhere when you entered the PRJ number, it gave you like the main screen and then you went to status report, right?
Yeah, you can go like either way with that project number. Like once you click on this search button, if you enter the PRG number,
right,
it will take you to the in your projects, right? So let me show you.
Right.
Let me.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I missed that step at the beginning.
Because I don't have any projects. So let's take this project number. If you have the PRG number, you just go here. Enter this, it will take you in your project. Okay, so you see this kind of screen, right? Once you log in into your project, right? For the project first time you are doing it, then you have to,
down here.
this is the thing.
Yeah.
You will be seeing the status report will be here. When you have to create the new one, you have to click here.
I got it.
This is the new, so this is the way, like you will come on this page and you
Perfect.
will
Thank
update
you.
but the only thing is
All right.
the approval from the GPM. You can either send email, because there is no direct way to send this by ServiceNow to the GPM to get the approval on this report. So once you get the approval, then you need to turn it to the approved by GPM and hit the submit button or save button. Then it will submit into the system. So this is
Do we attach the email approval to this?
Not the
to the
email.
little clip?
No, nothing. There is no way to attach the email to this. There is no way. So you have to just see either verbally, you have to get it approved from your GPM, or maybe just send all the content, but you want to update in the project status report, that you need to send it to. Yeah, there is no direct.
What's that little clip? What's the little clip up there in the right-hand corner next to save? Is that?
No, this is not that. Like, you cannot send it to that. Yeah, this is the, like, you can upload the document here, something like that. But yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So this is
okay.
So this is the way
Okay.
you submit the status report on ServiceNow. So what we do every first and third Friday of, basically we take the report from the first Friday that you submit that, we extract that, analyze it every for the final PHR on third Thursday of month. So let me get back to this screen. So this is the way, like, we submit, change, edit, and update the status report in the ServiceNow. Move on to my next slide. So this is the thing I have already covered in the ServiceNow. So let me move on. So this is just nothing. Let me walk you through on this. So this is just a flow chart that IT PMO follows to conduct the monthly PHR meeting, send out the reminder to that PM and GPN to submit the status report by first or third Friday of every month. We conduct meeting, the pre-PHR meeting with PM and GPM to get more insight about the projects, that you get that invite for those meetings as well. We send the pre-PHR decks to make sure everything looks fine for the final PHR meeting. And then we check with when we kept the final meeting. Generally it happens on third Thursday of every month. We create all these. So all, like, according to these notes, we follow all these notes and everything. Finally, we create these decks. So this is just the overview of the final deck, how it looks in the final deck. So this is kind of like overview, just it's giving the portfolio summary, how many projects are there, what is the budget and everything. But so we will be sending out the final PHR deck with you, because the upcoming PHR on May 19th. So we will be sending out the IT PMO sending out this. So you will be receiving the email with the final deck today or maybe tomorrow morning. So yeah, so these are the key fields we use on the final deck for the projects. So we basically point out on the committed delivery date. So we always ask you to change that if there is any doubt or anything, if you cannot complete the project, so please try to submit the JD for that committed delivery date so you can get approval before we put on the RAD. Because if you, once you pass the committed delivery date, we have to mark it as a RAD project. So please keep in mind when you submit the report. So these are the highlight of the portfolio health review project meeting. So these are the things. So is there any questions? If you have, feel free to send email. You can ask now. Send the email to IT PMO. So this is about all project health review. So I think let me give it to Naren back it to. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Yeah, just before we move on here, I just wanted to bring in a couple of important things. However good your project is, if you do not represent the project well to the senior leadership team, it's going to be like unnoticed effort, right? So use this project status report as a tool for presenting your project.
Please record your message. When you have finished recording, you may hang up or press 1 for more options.
Okay.
We did not get your message either because you were not speaking or because of a bad connection. To disconnect, press 1. To record your message, press 2.
I don't know what is going on.
Are you still there? To disconnect, press 1. To record your message, press 2.
Oh, man. What is going
Was there somebody joined us with
Are
this?
you still there? To disconnect, press 1. To record your message, press 2.
on?
Sorry you were having trouble. Please try again later. Goodbye.
Oh, that was Leah's phone, I think.
It was coming through Leah's message.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. That's yeah.
Okay, so let's move on. So project managers, as a community, we should make it a habit to represent or present our projects properly to the senior leadership team. So the best way is to use your status report. Okay, so get to the status report. Is somebody sharing the screen? Aarti, is that you?
I'm going to start sharing mine, Naren. I
Okay,
think
yeah,
Archie
just hang in there. Good. So just wanted to give some tips to the project managers that finish your status reports on time with all the details that you want to present your project for. Okay, if your project is in red, there is nothing to be feel bad about it. Red is another status that we want to present to the main senior leadership team, but we should have a proper plan to come back to green, right? So present all these things. Why it is in red, what are you doing to bring it back to green, and then if you need any special help from the senior leadership team, present it over there. Okay. The basic idea of calling out a project red is just to say that the project needs help. Okay. If the project is going smooth, well and good. But if the project is going towards red, as a project manager, you are the first person to identify the risk or the issue that is pushing the project to red. Immediately identify and highlight it. Bring it forward. Okay. Project health is a culmination of the data of the status reports, where we are collecting the data about various statuses and then presenting to them. So the bottom line for both these efforts is your trust and transparency, right? We trust you to give the exact information about your project and also to come with a proper plan of action. So make use of these tools. The status reports and the health review meetings come with proper information, get the needed help, and put the back-end project into green status. That's all we are asking here for. And these are the tools that you can use. Okay. I think with that, we'll move on to the next interesting topic, risk, issue, and decision management. Salita is going to present this one. Over to you, Salita.
Great. Thank you, Naren. You'll notice that a few minutes ago, during Arthi's snow demonstration, there were several tabs in snow, and risk management was one of the tabs. And this data is extracted for PHR reporting. So you'll want to ensure that as a part of managing your project, that you effectively manage your risks and issues with early identification and assignment and management, so that if you do have a risk, that can be reported and effectively managed. So with that, let's get started with risk and issue management. This same slide was presented during your new PM training. So this is likely not new information to you. This just outlines the principles and provides an overview and gives us a description of the different types of risks and some examples. So likely this information is familiar to you, what the difference between a risk versus an issue versus recording a decision and then managing change. So this is application of your risk management or risk identification in accordance with our stage gate process. And it is accommodated in both waterfall and agile, but we'll work through the waterfall flow as an example during our training. And of course, If you have any questions, please enter those in the chat, and one of my teammates will respond via chat, or we can accommodate your question during the presentation. So let's look at the create concept phase. When you are working in this ideation type phase, this is where you want to initiate your risk register so that you can capture your risk. So you initiate your risk register and you identify high-level risks at this point. As you move through gate 1 and the determination is made that, yes, we are going to proceed with fully developing a business case to present it for SLT consideration, you will want to complete a qualitative risk assessment. So the difference between the qualitative risk assessment and the quantitative risk assessment that's conducted in later phases we'll go into with a little depth in later slides. But at this point, you will conduct a qualitative risk assessment. And again, we will work through how you conduct that assessment, how you score your risks in just a few minutes. As you move through gate 2 and you move into initiating your project, you'll want to finalize that qualitative risk assessment and then identify any change plan ownership is needed. You move through gate 3 and into developing your initial design. And this is where you want to develop your quantitative risk assessment, during which you apply numbers or costs associated with the risk to develop your contingency budget or feed your contingency budget. As you move through gate 4 into your design phase, as part of managing your risk management plan and your risk management process, you are evaluating your risks, you're identifying new risks as they arrive throughout the life cycle of your project. So here is where you update your risks and your issues, and then you'll also update your risk contingency estimates. Remember, you've conducted a quantitative risk assessment, and that allows you to update your risk contingency estimates. We then move through gate 5 into the direct and manage stage. Again, you'll update your risk and issue, you'll manage your risk register, but at this point, you'll document lessons learned. As you manage your risk register and manage your risks, that will present opportunity for you to document lessons learned. As you move through gate 6 and into post-deployment, you'll want to ensure that all project risks and issues are closed and documented. So that's a look at applying risk management to the waterfall process, and we'll look at that in a little greater detail in the next few slides. So again, we're back at creating concept. And remember, this is where you initiate your risk or your issue register. So how do you do that? Well, you do that in ServiceNow. When you are inside of your project record, and we just had a question a few moments ago about how do I get to my project, and Arthi provided a demo of entering the project number into the search feature. So you'd enter your project number into the search feature and you would open that project record. You would navigate to the risk tab, and in the gear icon, that allows you to add or remove columns that you'd like to see in your view. So you have an opportunity to personalize this view for the fields that you use most frequently. You'll appropriate you'll select the appropriate fields by selecting whatever field you want to include. Use the button to move it over to this column. These are the columns that will be depicted, or the data elements that will be depicted in your view. You click OK to save that view, and that's how you initiate your risk register. So in managing your risk, we go through certain stages. First, you identify your risk. And again, this occurs throughout the life cycle of your project. You identify the risk, how it could impact your what's your project rather, what's the probability of that risk occurring? And if it does occur, what are potential responses? That's part of developing your risk management plan and risk identification. Once you identify your risk, you want to conduct a risk analysis or an assessment, and we'll go through an example of that in just a minute. But as we mentioned, this is done qualitatively during initial stages and then quantitatively from the develop initial design stage and onward in the life cycle. You also want to have a plan for how you will respond to a risk should that risk be realized. You want to develop options and determine courses of actions that enhance our opportunity to reduce the threat. At this point, you want to assign ownership for monitoring specific risks. Then you move into risk monitoring and control. Again, as you move throughout the life cycle of your project, you'll want to monitor your risk. You want to reassess the probability or impact of a risk, identify new risks, and execute your risk response plan should a risk materialize, and then verify that that response is effective and make any adjustments as needed. And then finally, you move into the risk closure stage, where you ensure that the risk is actually closed and that any risk that has become an issue has been addressed and closed as well. So stage one, risk identification again. These are the data elements that you want to be sure that you document when you identify your risk. The key to successful risk management is timely identification, timely communication, and continued management. So here is how you would consider categorizing your risk. We have here, this column notes your identification methods, how you might identify a risk. You might review similar projects to identify a risk. You might have project documentation reviews, which bring risks to the surface. So those are a couple of examples of how you could identify, or methods for how you could identify a risk. Then you want to categorize that risk. Is it an external risk? Is it an organizational risk? Is it a technical risk? So those are the categories you should consider. And then how do I communicate that risk? Right now, we're asking you to ensure that your risks are entered into ServiceNow, because our method of communicating risk, besides your reporting, your internal project reporting that you do with your team, our method for reporting risk to a senior management visibility is through documentation at ServiceNow. So ensure that your risks are entered in ServiceNow so that senior leadership has visibility of risks and can facilitate or any mitigation plans or provide support as needed. And in the final column, you have some what your communication should include: a description of the risk, information to help with the risk response, the category that you've identified, and all of the factors that you see here is what you want your risk communications to include. So now we're at stage 2. You've identified a risk, and now you want to conduct your risk analysis or assessment. And as we've noted, this is the point at which you conduct a qualitative risk assessment. This is where you're scoring your risk. You are considering rating the probability of the risk occurring. And you'll want to rate that probability, you want to consider any external factors, you want to consider any change requirements, and you want to consider organizational capabilities. So let's take a risk, for example. You have identified a risk item and determined that, well, there's maybe a 75% probability that this risk could occur, meaning that it's more likely to occur than not during your project schedule. We rate that probability as highly likely, and it's scored on a scale of a number 4. So that is how you rate your probability. Then you rate the impact of that risk event. This is an estimate of the scale of the impact of a risk. And you want to consider impact to the schedule, impact to the scope, or impact to the cost. And I will call your attention to this asterisk here. When you're conducting this assessment, you're considering impact to key milestones. So not at a task level, but at a milestone level. So let's look at the risk then, our example risk that we identified. We determined that, well, this risk could impact my effort, and I've determined a 7% impact to my budget, or it's going to impact my milestone by 25 days. So when we consider that budget impact or that schedule impact, we determined that that risk event, the impact of that risk event is high. And so we rate that scale as a number 4. So then we said our probability was 4 and our impact was rated as a 4. So let's move along in this qualitative assessment process. At this point in your risk assessment step, you rated your probability, and in our example risk, we rated probability as a 4. We rated our impact for our sample risk as high, and we rated it as a 4. So your risk index, in calculating your risk index, it's a factor of probability times impact. So for our example risk, a 4 times a 4 gives us a risk index of 16. So that risk index is high for that specific risk. This probability impact matrix communicates the same thing. We rated our the impact of our example risk is high, and we rated the probability as high. This communicates the same thing, communicates your risk index. Do we have any questions? Let me pause to see if we have any questions around conducting the qualitative risk assessment. The importance of this qualitative risk assessment is that it feeds your business case. In your business case document, you will list your risks, and you will rate the probability and the impact, and you will provide the risk index score. So that's the importance of understanding how to conduct the qualitative risk assessment. Well, great. We will move along then with how do I create that risk in ServiceNow? So again, you navigate to your project, your specific project, and we talked about that earlier. You navigate to your risk tab, you select the new button to create a new risk, and then you complete your data elements here. A good best practice is to include any working notes. Anytime you add your risk, anytime you update your risk, it's a good business practice to add your working notes. And then you want to click save to save your individual risk item. And again, this information is extracted, this risk information is extracted from ServiceNow and included in portfolio reporting. So now that we've done our qualitative risk assessment in earlier phases, now we are going to conduct a quantitative risk assessment, and this is done at later stages in the project. So we'll work through an example. We use Monte Carlo analysis to perform this calculation, and we'll look at an example on the next slide. So here is an example of conducting your quantitative risk assessment, and really what you're doing is calculating your contingency. So this is the formula for applying the PERT method. So you get your PERT calculation, which is your minimum cost impact. So for example, this minimum cost impact plus your most likely cost impact multiplied by a factor of 4. So that's the value that goes in the formula here, plus your maximum cost impact. You get the total of those values, and then you divide it by 6, that gives you your PERT value. Your PERT value times your probability gives you this recommended contingency amount for an individual risk. So you have an example of 3 risks here, and you have your probability of occurrence here. Then you get your minimum, most likely, maximum cost impact, leverage the formula, and this is the recommended contingency amount for that risk. And that feeds your contingency budget. So now we're in stage 3. So you've conducted your qualitative risk assessment, you've conducted your quantitative risk assessment, and you are effectively managing your risk plan for your project throughout its life cycle. So stage 3 is risk response planning. The first column gives you some mitigation strategies. You may choose to avoid the risk. You may choose to transfer the risk. You may choose to minimize the risk, which is provide a mitigation path, or you may simply choose to accept the risk. And so we have definitions here, and I know you've seen all of this before, so I'm not going to read through these slides, but they are here for your reference. And if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to the IT EPMO team if we need to go into this in detail. But I think this is pretty straightforward. It gives you an example of each of the mitigation strategies, gives you a definition and an example. So if you have any questions about that, don't hesitate to reach out to us. Then finally, we move to stage 4, which is risk monitoring and controlling. Your reference regarding risk management, your Bible for risk management, is going to be the Risk and Issues Playbook. You'll find detailed content around risk management planning in the playbook. So that is your resource for understanding how to manage and plan for your risk. So in risk monitoring and controlling, you do this throughout the life cycle. You have your inputs here. Your outputs are defined in this column. And then the project manager is the owner for risk management planning and reporting. And then finally, we are at stage 5, and risk closure. Risk closure can occur throughout the life cycle. For example, you have a risk that you identified early on, and that risk is either mitigated or resolved. So you can close a risk at any point in the project life cycle, but you definitely want to take care toward the end of your project life cycle to validate or confirm that all risks are closed, and this is accomplished by obtaining product or project manager approval and concurrence that the risk has been mitigated. And you also want to take the opportunity to conduct a lessons learned discussion so that you can capture the result of your risk, perhaps if your risk mitigation or your risk management plan was effective. You want to document your lessons learned. And then you definitely want to close any risk that has been realized as an issue to ensure that the risk owner has closed the item in the risk register. Here are some risk issue and decision management guidelines. It's here for your reference, and then we'll provide a final reminder here that risk reporting is included in your PHR reporting. What you don't want to happen is that some risk event occurs that has not been planned for when it could have been or should have been identified and a plan put in place for it. So that's why you want to take the time. You don't want to report a risk late in your project life cycle that should have been identified and effectively managed. And we want to remind you again that ServiceNow is the data repository for RID registers. The floor is open. Are there any questions about risk or issue management or analysis?
I do have a question. As
Sure.
far as the risks in ServiceNow, You said that they should be closed once they're converted to issue. As I know in ServiceNow, there is a capability to just mark the risk as converted to issue.
Right, right. So if a risk is realized, it should be converted to an issue, and you should have a plan in place in agreement with your project team to effectively mitigate or resolve that issue, or have a plan and be able to articulate how you're addressing issue management.
Thank you.
So
And once
wanna-
it's been converted to the issue, my main question is the risk itself in ServiceNow. Do you want that to be marked as closed or as converted to issue?
It should be converted to issue. Anytime a risk is realized, you don't want the redundancy of reporting it twice. If a risk is realized, that's what creates an issue. So once the risk is realized, it should convert to an issue, and you should be communicating your plan to resolve for issue management or issue closure.
Thank you.
Sure thing. If you have any questions about that, don't hesitate to reach out to us. The floor is open. Do we have any final questions before we move into our next module? I believe Anthony Santillo is going to present the cost estimator tool. Anthony?
Yes, good afternoon. Yes, this is Anthony. Did you want to switch the screen share?
Sure, sure.
Okay. Okay. Okay, well, good afternoon, and this is Anthony. I just wanted to kind of go through and highlight the cost estimator tool and process, a very important part of the stage gate and processes for large formal gated projects. So certainly, just as an overview, the objective of the cost estimator is to, when a project is identified, an issue, an initiative is identified by a project sponsor, we need to get our hands around the cost, and we come up with what's called the rough order of magnitude cost, again, at the onset of the project, where working with the project sponsors as subject matter experts, that we can come up with and develop a tool here, a summary of the costs, so that the stakeholders and the decision makers can get an assessment of the project. And so when do we use this? So as Narendra talked about earlier, we have basically the two formal gated and informal gated processes. We have two templates for cost estimation, one for the formal gated, and that's what we'll touch on today. There is also on SharePoint and on the source a cost estimator for informal gated projects, but we're just going to talk today about the cost estimator tool for formal gated projects, these projects that had, which again, either of a large value or of a critical from a cybersecurity or from a priority perspective is very important to the company. And certainly some of the features of the cost estimator is that it provides a consistent and aligned process for senior management to review and evaluate the cost of the project. There's a lot of preloaded resources. There's a lot of information in the template, and the template just walks you through essentially 8 steps to guide you to create and summarize the project and its cost. Now, where is this? Of course, it would be on the SharePoint. So if we go over to on our SharePoint site for the IT EPMO site, you'll see that like on the screen, it's under Documents, IT EPMO Asset Library, Tools and Templates. And then certainly you will see here at the bottom, Cost Estimated Formal Tool.
Anthony,
so again, it's an
have to
Excel file. Yeah.
Anthony, you have to share your screen.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought it was shared. I'm sorry. Okay, and I apologize. So, so again, the cost estimator template, the tool to be used is an Excel template. It's on the SharePoint of the EPMO site. This is where it's located. It's here under the EPMO Asset Library Tools and Templates. It's highlighted down here at the bottom under Cost Estimator. And again, it's an Excel file. So when you click on it and open it up, it essentially starts with some general guidelines, a general overview of what we're trying to accomplish here. Again, when an opportunity or a project sponsor identifies something that needs to be costed out of a large magnitude, this file allows us to do that. And so again, the team is aligned, the project sponsor, the project managers, any subject matters expert, and certainly the EPMO team, if necessary, to get involved and to help to create the cost of this project, this rough order of magnitude. And so once it's the template is completed, the template and the cost estimator is submitted to the EPMO team. It's reviewed. There's some dialogue, and to ensure that everything, all the artifacts and everything is consistent and ready to be presented to the executive steering committee. And once that is done, then feedback is given back on the process. So the template then just simply walks to the second tab, some general instructions. Really, there's essentially 8 steps identified here. Some steps in the beginning of creating the assumptions, identifying either the people cost, the inventory cost, the non-workforce or workforce costs to compile into the spreadsheet and to go through the various pages, tabs in the file. In the file, there's certainly some guidelines. For example, there are colors to identify which fields are calculated fields like, for example, in blue, fields that data is required to be provided by the user, the brown fields, and a lot of where is the file itself, just when the information is put in, it then feeds other sheets that become summary sheets later in the document. So again, starting with the first step, some general key assumptions. There's always frequently asked questions, or can always return to get additional information, any resources that you need to complete any of the fields. They're pretty self-explanatory. At the same time, it allows you with a lot of instructions here in the blue areas, as well as the brown areas where you provide the information. And then just again, walk you through some of the assessments. Again, this is more of from a data input. What are the resources, the projected expense items, as well as then any inventory in terms of workforce. The complexity of the project is also a critical element. Working through the rest of the pages and steps. Again, just essentially identifying the items and the respective costs, and any comments or notes that need to be put into the file. And then the file starts creating an area to identify the complexity of the project and to account for that, whether it's a medium complexity, low, high complexity. And then again, the project then continues to get summarized in the later steps 6, 7, and 8, where again, it takes the resources and the inputs that you put in the beginning of the template and then starts to summarize them as a project. For example, in step 6, project effort summary, step 7, the project cost summary, and then a general output summary of the information. There's also other items in here, other resources in terms of explaining and identify some of the terminology needs in terms of the workforce, as well as the how to identify and assess the complexity of the document. There's also a sheet which allows a consistent approach to the number of of resource hours needed for various positions and work items of the process. And so again, it really just becomes a summary document that at the end, taking all the input from the beginning and then allowing a consistent summary that senior management can review and evaluate here. So essentially that's really just what I wanted to cover on today's orientation to this slide. But again, it really comes to what we want to do is, again, create a consistent approach using an aligned process, reaching out to the PMO team, working with and developing, critical assumptions in terms of both the people resources as well as any other inventory or non-labor costs for the process. And that's essentially what I wanted just to add at this time. So I don't know if there's any other questions or if Naren wanted to add any additional information about this tool at the time.
Yep, and thanks, Anthony. Just wanted to add a couple of points here, right? So let's tie back to the first module that we went through, the project categorization. And then based on that, what all the things that we pick up, right? The project categorization helps you to understand what is the project. Is it a formal gated project or an informal gated project, correct? So for formal gated project, when you are going through the process of estimating the cost, so this is the tool that needs to be used because of those parameters that are there, right? Either the size of the project, the risk that is a project, the visibility of the project, and then the financial management of the project. If the project qualifies with any of those factors as formal gated, that means we are looking at the project with a lot more focus because the value that adds to the whole organization or because of the compliance that we have. But if you are looking at an informal gated project, which is lighter in nature and now has lesser deliverables, then we can relax even on the cost estimator. So there is a second type of cost estimator, which is called informal gated cost estimator. And both these estimators are available on the templates, project templates on the source. Let me show you that. Can you just give me the share, Anthony?
Yes, sir. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so going on to the so let me share my screen with reference to the project templates, right? It's on the source, like I said, and the section that hosts these templates is the project templates. So if you go to source and type out project templates in your search box, you come to this section and you have the cost estimator formal gated. The one that Anthony showed is on the SharePoint site is the same thing over here. Scroll downwards, then you will have another one called cost estimator informal gated and miscellaneous. This is a vanilla version, a lighter version of the cost estimated tool that is used for formal gated. This is lighter, doesn't contain all those complex calculations that we expect for a project to come up with the RAM estimates. The classic difference between the two is the weighted calculations based on the risk, based on the probability of the usage of those hours, etc., etc. So you will have the cost estimator formal gated, a lot more details are needed compared to the cost estimator informal gated. Okay. So if your project is categorized properly, then you can automatically pick up the one that you want to use for your project. Okay. So that's just, I wanted to add a little bit more information there. So that is basically the cost estimation that is going to play a big role in the project lifecycle. It starts with your business case stage, even before that, when you are estimating the rough order magnitude, etc. And then the same tool can be used in order to refine your cost estimates as you go through the life cycle of the project. And why we are insisting this cost estimator this much is basically the value that it brings to both business and the IT teams. right? All the assumptions are captured, all the estimates are properly taken care, all the interactions with the other project teams are all accommodated, so that your cost is as close to the realistic picture as possible. I'm asking for more dollars and going back and saying that I couldn't estimate that. We can avoid such statements by properly estimating in the beginning itself and then refining it on a structured tool. Okay. So that closes the modules that we want to share with you and give a deeper sense of understanding. Anybody has any questions or any topics that you want to visit? Okay, so it seems that the session is good, that people could understand some of these typical important areas of the project, and then how these will be helping you in your life cycle management of a project. So any questions or any ideas that you have that you want to share with us, or want to have more details, please send out an email to us, or share in another forums that we have. We have a GPM PM forum on Thursdays, and then we have these regular interactive sessions with you, so you can share your thoughts anytime. You can interact with us through the EPMO mailbox. You have the the links in the deck. Okay, this deck is again stored in the SharePoint site, and also this recording of this session is also going to be stored over there. The links will be shared with you anytime offline you want to listen to what has been discussed and what has been told, then you can as well refer to those recordings. Okay. So with that, if no questions, then we are closing this session. Good to see all of you. Have a good day. Bye-bye.